You're sitting there giving your time, your energy, your attention, and deep down, you already know something feels off. But instead of walking away, you stay. You explain. You argue. You try to fix what clearly doesn't want to be fixed. Let me tell you something most people won't say out loud. Emotionally strong men don't do that. They don't beg for understanding. They don't chase closure. And they definitely don't announce their exit like it's a performance. They simply walk away, quietly. Now, that might sound cold. It might even sound heartless, but it's not. It's discipline, it's self-respect, and more importantly, it's clarity. See, the world has conditioned many men to believe they must always prove their worth, prove their loyalty, prove their love, prove their patience. But the truth is, the stronger a man becomes emotionally, the less he feels the need to prove anything at all. He understands that not every situation deserves a reaction, and not every person deserves an explanation. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most men don't struggle because they're weak. They struggle because they're attached to outcomes, to validation, to being understood. They hold on longer than they should, hoping things will change. But emotionally strong men see things for what they are, not what they wish them to be. And when they realize something no longer aligns with their values, their peace, or their direction, they don't create chaos on the way out. They don't burn bridges. They don't seek revenge. They detach, quietly, completely. This isn't about being emotionless. It's about mastering your emotions so they don't control your decisions, because the loudest reaction is not always the strongest one. In fact, silence, when used with intention, is often the ultimate sign of control. So if you've ever wondered why some men can walk away without a word, without a scene, without looking back, it's not because they don't care. It's because they understand something most people don't. And in this video, we're going to break that down step by step so you can start thinking, acting, and moving like a man who doesn't just feel strong, but is strong where it truly matters. 1. No explanation is power, not weakness. Let me ask you something. Why do you feel the need to explain yourself every time you decide to leave something behind? Why is it that the moment you choose your peace, you suddenly feel obligated to sit down, justify your decision, and make sure everyone else understands it? Think about that for a second, because emotionally strong men don't do that. They don't hold meetings to announce their exit. They don't write long messages trying to be understood. And they definitely don't argue just to make someone else see their point. They make a decision, and they stand by it. Now, this is where it becomes controversial. Most people will tell you that communication is everything, that you should always explain yourself, always express how you feel, always seek mutual understanding. And yes, communication matters, but only where it's respected, only where it's received, only where it actually changes something. An emotionally strong man knows the difference. He understands that explaining himself to someone who has already chosen not to understand him is a waste of energy. It's like talking to someone who has already made up their mind about you. No matter how clear you are, no matter how calm you are, it won't land. And instead of draining himself trying to prove a point, he simply steps back and walks away. Quietly. This is not weakness. This is control. Because needing to explain yourself often comes from a deeper place. A need for validation. A need to be seen as right. A need to be understood so you can feel at peace with your decision. But here's the truth. Real peace doesn't come from other people agreeing with you. It comes from you being certain within yourself, and that certainty doesn't need an audience. Strong men don't ignore people out of pride. They don't stay silent to punish others. They stay silent because they've learned that not every situation deserves their voice. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected, and not every ending needs a speech. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. Now, that doesn't mean you avoid responsibility. If you've done wrong, you own it. If clarity is genuinely needed, you give it. But you don't over-explain. You don't chase understanding. You don't exhaust yourself trying to control how others see you. You let your actions speak. And here's what most men don't realize. When you stop over-explaining yourself, people start paying closer attention. Your silence creates space. It creates presence. It shows that you're not easily shaken, not easily pulled into unnecessary drama. That's where the power is. So the next time you feel that urge to explain everything, pause. Ask yourself, is this going to change anything? Or am I just trying to be understood? Because once you learn to answer that honestly, you'll realize that walking away without explanation isn't weakness. It's discipline, it's self-respect, and above all, it's power. 2. Closure is a lie. Most men chase. Let me say something that might hit you a little hard. You don't actually need closure. Not from her, not from them, not from anyone. But you've probably been told the opposite your whole life. You've been told you need that final conversation, that last explanation, that moment where everything is said, everything is understood, and both people walk away feeling at peace. Sounds ideal, right? But let's be honest, that rarely happens. Most of the time, what men call closure is just another attempt to reopen a door that's already been shut. It's one more conversation, one more message, one more chance to finally feel understood. But instead of bringing peace, it usually brings more confusion, more frustration, and sometimes even more attachment. And that's the trap. Emotionally strong men understand something most don't. Closure is not something you get. It's something you create. They don't sit around waiting for someone else to explain why things ended the way they did. They don't chase answers from people who are no longer part of their life. And they definitely don't depend on one last conversation to move forward. Because they know this truth. If someone wanted to give you clarity, they would have already done it. Think about that. If someone respected you enough, if they valued your peace enough, they wouldn't leave you in a place where you're forced to chase understanding. The fact that you're searching for closure is often the clearest sign that it's not coming. And instead of accepting that, most men keep going back. They replay conversations in their head. They draft messages they never send, or worse, they actually send them, hoping this time will be different. But emotionally strong men break that cycle early. They stop asking why and start accepting what is. This doesn't mean they don't feel anything. It doesn't mean they're unaffected. It simply means they don't allow unanswered questions to control their direction. They accept that not every story gets a clean ending. Not every situation comes with a clear explanation. And that's okay, because real closure doesn't come from someone else finally saying the right words. It comes from you deciding that you're done seeking them. It's a decision to stop chasing clarity from people who already walked away, a decision to stop needing answers that may never come, a decision to move forward even when things feel unfinished. That's where strength shows up. And here's what's powerful about that. When you stop chasing closure, you take back control. You're no longer waiting. You're no longer stuck. You're no longer tied to someone else's response. You move on your terms. So the next time you feel the urge to reach out one last time, to get that final answer, to close the chapter properly, pause. Ask yourself, am I looking for closure or am I just struggling to let go? Because once you answer that honestly, you'll realize something most men never do. Closure was never something they needed to give you. It was something you had to give yourself. 3. Attachment is the real weakness. Let's be real for a moment. You don't lose control because you're emotional. You lose control because you're attached. Attached to being understood. Attached to how things should go. Attached to people staying the same, treating you the same, valuing you the same. And when that attachment gets challenged, that's when everything starts to feel heavy. You start overthinking. You start reacting more than you should. You start holding on longer than you know you need to. And deep down, you feel it. That quiet voice telling you, this isn't right anymore. But instead of listening, you hold on tighter. You try to fix it, adjust yourself, stay patient, stay hopeful. Not because it's working, but because you've become attached to the idea of it working. That's where most men lose their strength. Because attachment creates dependency. And dependency makes you tolerate things you normally wouldn't. It makes you ignore what you clearly see. It makes you hesitate when you should be walking away. Emotionally strong men recognize this early. They understand that the more attached you are, the less clearly you think. Your decisions stop being based on truth and start being based on fear. Fear of losing, fear of starting over, fear of letting go. And fear is not a strong place to operate from. So instead of feeding that attachment, strong men step back and observe it. They don't pretend it's not there. They just refuse to let it control them. They question it. They create space from it. And most importantly, they don't let it dictate their actions. Because here's the truth. Just because you feel strongly about something doesn't mean you should hold on to it. That's a hard pill to swallow. You can care deeply and still walk away. You can value something and still let it go. Those two things can exist at the same time, but most men don't allow that. They believe that if they feel something strongly, they must stay. But strength is not about how long you can hold on. It's about knowing when to release. And when you reduce your attachment, everything becomes clearer. Your decisions become calmer. Your reactions become controlled. You stop chasing and you start choosing. That's the shift. So when you feel yourself getting pulled in, when you feel that urge to hold on just a little longer, pause and ask yourself, am I acting from clarity or from attachment? Because once you see that difference, you'll understand something powerful. Attachment isn't strength. Letting go is. 4. Silence speaks louder than arguments. Let's be honest, you don't always speak because something needs to be said. A lot of the time, you speak because you feel the need to win, to prove your point, to be heard, to make sure the other person understands that you're right. And that's exactly where most men get it wrong. Because not every situation is a debate. Not every disagreement deserves your energy. Yet many men keep talking, explaining, arguing, thinking that if they just say it the right way one more time, things will finally change. But they don't. Instead, you end up repeating yourself. Your tone shifts, your frustration builds, and before you realize it, you're no longer in control. You're reacting. That's not strength. That's emotional leakage. Here's the hard truth. If someone truly wanted to understand you, they wouldn't need 10 explanations. They wouldn't need constant clarification. At some point, the issue isn't your communication. It's their willingness to receive it. And this is where emotionally strong men separate themselves. They don't raise their voice to be heard. They don't drag conversations longer than necessary, and they don't argue just to feel validated. The moment they see that a conversation is going in circles, they disengage, calmly, quietly, without turning it into a scene. Now here's where you need to wake up. Every time you keep arguing beyond that point, you're not showing strength. You're showing that you're emotionally invested in being right. You're giving away control. You're allowing someone else to pull you into a space where your peace depends on their response. And that's a losing position. Strong men understand that silence is not avoidance, it's selection. It's choosing where your energy goes and where it doesn't. It's recognizing that some conversations don't deserve a conclusion and some people don't deserve continued access to your voice, because your voice has value. And when you use it too freely, especially in situations that don't change, you reduce that value. You become predictable, easy to engage, easy to pull into unnecessary conflict. But when you learn to step back, when you choose silence instead of endless explanation, something shifts. You regain control. Your presence becomes stronger. Your reactions become measured. And most importantly, you stop wasting energy on things that were never going to change in the first place. So here's the advice. Simple, but not easy. Stop trying to win every conversation. Stop thinking every situation needs your final word. And start recognizing when it's time to disengage. Because once you master that, you'll realize something most men overlook. The strongest position is not always the one where you speak the most. It's the one where you know when to say nothing at all. 5. Respect comes from walking away, not staying. Let's clear something up. Staying is not always strength. In fact, a lot of the time, it's the opposite. You've probably been taught that loyalty means holding on no matter what. That real strength is shown by enduring, by staying through discomfort, by proving you don't give up easily. And while that sounds admirable, it becomes dangerous when you apply it to situations that are clearly draining you. Because staying in something that no longer respects you doesn't make you strong. It makes you stuck. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't respect you more because you tolerate more. They don't value you more because you stay longer than you should. If anything, the opposite happens. The more you accept less than you deserve, the more that becomes your standard. And emotionally strong men understand this early. They don't measure their strength by how much they can endure. They measure it by what they're willing to walk away from. The moment something starts costing them their peace, their self-respect, or their direction, they don't negotiate with it. They remove themselves from it, quietly. Not to prove a point, not to create a reaction, but because they understand their value isn't something to debate. Now, this is where most men hesitate. You feel it, that moment where you know you should leave, but instead you second-guess yourself. You think about the time invested, the effort given, the possibility that things might change, and so you stay just a little longer. But every extra moment you stay in the wrong place, you weaken your own position, because you're telling yourself, without saying it out loud, this is acceptable. Strong men don't do that. They trust what they see, they trust what they feel, and they act on it without needing permission. They don't wait until things completely fall apart. They don't wait until they're drained. They move when they recognize misalignment. That's what builds real respect, and it starts internally. Because before anyone else respects you, you have to show yourself that you're willing to choose your own standards over your comfort, that you're willing to let go even when it's inconvenient, that you're willing to walk away even when part of you wants to stay. That's discipline. And once you move like that, people notice, not because you demanded respect, but because your actions made it clear. So the next time you find yourself holding on, ask yourself this: am I staying because it's right or because it's familiar? Because once you answer that honestly, you'll see it clearly. Respect doesn't come from how long you stay. It comes from knowing when to walk away. Let me leave you with something that might challenge the way you see everything we've just talked about. Most men don't get disrespected because people are cruel. They get disrespected because they stay where they are no longer valued. That's uncomfortable, but it's real. Because the moment you stop over-explaining, stop chasing closure, stop holding on out of attachment, and stop arguing for your worth, you change how people experience you. Not by force, not by words, but by standards. And standards are quiet. This is not about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming clear. Clear about what you accept, what you walk away from, and who gets access to your time and energy. That's where your strength is built. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever stayed longer than you knew you should have? Or have you ever made the decision to walk away silently? Drop your experience in the comments. I read them and I do reach out. Let's build something real here, because the more honest you are about your journey, the stronger you become moving forward. And if you take anything from this, let it be this: silence is not weakness. Used correctly, it's power.